Welcome to the Fibromyalgia Podcast. I'm Tami, fibromyalgia coach, author, and founder of the International Fibromyalgia Coaching Institute. The goal of this podcast is to empower you with access to the dream team of experts and coaches I've discovered are key to living the fibro life you love. From the comfort of your own home, and maybe even your pajamas, I'll help you take back control of your life and health. To help out with fibro fog, I always include full show notes and additional resources at fibromyalgiapodcast.com. Welcome to the Fibromyalgia Podcast. I'm your coach, Tami, and this is episode 98. In today's episode, I'm sharing a fabulous resource that will help you explain fibromyalgia to the little ones in your life, all those kiddos. This is the book, Ravyn's Doll: How to Explain Fibromyalgia to Your Child, written by Melissa Swanson. Melissa is joining me today, and she's going to be sharing the story behind Ravyn's Doll, who Ravyn is, how the book came to be, and how you can use it with the kiddos in your life, those nieces, nephews, grandchildren, children, Sunday school kids. Any young ones in your life can benefit from the information that Melissa shares in her book, Ravyn's Doll. Let me introduce you to Melissa. She is a chronic pain patient, advocate, and, of course, author. Through her Fibro Warriors Living Life Facebook page and blog, she offers supportive encouragement, medical information, resources, and support to 20,000 plus fibromyalgia and chronic pain patients. As we are discussing here today, Melissa is the author of Ravyn's Doll: How to Explain Fibromyalgia to Your Child. She's also a program director with the International Support Fibro Network. She is a graduate of the Leaders Against Pain Scholarship Training, which is where Melissa and I first met in 2014. And she is one of the graduates of the International Fibromyalgia Coaching Institute. Melissa was actually in my very first class. She works with clients as a certified fibromyalgia advisor and helps them learn tools to live with a chronic illness, fibromyalgia. If you're looking for a cheerleader to be in your corner with a little bit of tough love when needed, Melissa is the one for you. She understands the struggles of trying to balance family life and work while living with the challenges of fibromyalgia and its evil sidekicks. Now, in today's episode, we're going to be focusing on Melissa's book, Ravyn's Doll. However, if you'd like to know more about Melissa's story, I interviewed her in episode 89, where we talked about an adventure she and I went on where we sort of accidentally on purpose climbed a mountain. But you can find that at fibromyalgiapodcast.com/89. And here's my interview with Melissa. Hi, Melissa. Thank you so much for coming back. I'm excited to talk to you about Ravyn's Doll.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here too.
So for everyone listening, if you haven't yet, as I mentioned in the intro, Melissa was on here sharing a bit of her story and an adventure we had in episode 89. So we're not going to go a whole lot into her story today. We're just going to talk about the book that she wrote, Ravyn's Doll. So Melissa, first off, I think it would be good to talk about who the heck Ravyn is.
I think most of the people who know me will know who Ravyn is because I kind of talk about her a little bit. But Ravyn is now our 22-year-old grown-up daughter. She was much younger at the time when I wrote the book. So yeah, that's kind of where I got the name for it, like Ravyn's Doll.
Mm-hmm. And how did you come up with the idea of writing this book? Was it just your own trying to explain things to her, or?
It wasn't so much her. It was that I started a new job and I started working with young children. And, I was having to all of a sudden get on the ground. I left an office job of 20 years and going and working with kiddos. And then all of a sudden having to be like on the ground, and do those things that I haven't had to do in a really long time, except with my own daughter when she was little. And at that time, I had not been sick. I hadn't been experiencing any of the symptoms when Ravyn was little. until she was older, until she was like, 9 or, around that age and stuff. And so here I am working with these little kids and I'm on the ground and I'm needing help to get up, and they can see me wincing, or if I'm walking, they can see how slow I'm walking. Or at the time, I was having severe migraines all the time. And I was needing to wear sunglasses, during the day at work while I'm inside the classrooms and stuff. And so they would keep asking me all these different questions and stuff, like how come this or that. I see different medical devices hanging out. You have the TENS unit, you got an ice
Right.
pack. I mean, you've got everything all over the place. And kids are curious and they'll ask everything and anything about what you've got going on. And so I was trying to explain it to them a little bit. And then it just kind of like all of a sudden, oh, it needs to be much easier. And, I'm not even a mom anymore of a young child anymore. There's got to be so many other people out there that are trying to explain it to their own children that are going
Mhm.
through it. And so I used my experience of how I was explaining it with my students and stuff and the things that Ravyn had actually done when she was a little bit older and helping me to kind of be able to put it together.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So for people who don't know Raven's doll, tell us a little bit about the story about the book.
Sure. The book takes place in a kindergarten classroom. And every week they have different themes. And this week, the nurse is going to come in and they're going to talk about different things about health. And they teach children, how they need to wash their hands and brush their teeth and to eat right. But then they also send home a paper doll and they're asking them to decorate the paper person to look like somebody that they know that has experienced some kind of illness or some kind of, injury or something like that. So the students come in and they sit in the circle and each one of them are displaying their paper doll and talking to them and telling them, this is who the paper doll is. This is, what's wrong with them and what they have. And when they get around to Ravyn, her paper doll looks like she's fine. She's got sparkly jeans on. She's got her sunglasses, her cell phone. She's got her big old purse and everything. And she doesn't look like she has any injury at all. And so then Ravyn explains, that some illnesses are things that you cannot see, they're invisible illnesses. And she kind of explains a little bit in simple terms what fibromyalgia is. My mommy hurts, she needs to have a rest. She needs help remembering and different things. So just in very, very simplistic terms, it kind of goes through the steps that Ravyn does on different things on how to help her mommy so that she can continue to be able to play or do things with her when she gets home from school.
I love it. It's such a powerful way to explain that. And then you also have some resources so you can actually do the activity that's happening in the book with the kids in your life. So let's talk about that a little.
I do. I started out when I was reading it in classrooms and stuff. Some of the students wanted to make their own paper dolls. And I thought, oh, that's really great. And so that's what I put out on my website is I actually did put it out there so you can print your own paper doll. And so that your little person can, color it and decorate it to be any person in your life that, whether it's yourself or somebody else that is facing maybe it's fibromyalgia or any other kind of illness and stuff. So you can talk about it. And then another one is, just to be able to get them talking about in the book, we can see and we kind of show how some illnesses you can see, like in the book, Mark, his paper doll, they have a broken arm and it's his brother that fell out of the tree. And so you can see that that's an illness and you can see, what has happened to him. Or you have the invisible illness, things that you cannot see, like if somebody is sad or if they're not feeling good or, like fibromyalgia and stuff that is invisible. And so you can get the older kids kind of talking about that. And I've been fortunate that in the school district that I work in, when May comes around and it's awareness month, the fifth grade teachers especially want me to come in and talk to those kids and to be able to educate them on what it is for fibromyalgia and everything and what it's like. And I've discovered several kids have come up to me in the last few years later on to tell me that who in their family member, has it and everything.
Yeah.
And that's been just really great. And another thing is our seventh grade English teachers have incorporated when they're writing now, they're supposed to be researching different illnesses and conditions on this paper. And they've added fibromyalgia as one of the illnesses that the kids can research, and using me as one of the resources so that more kids can learn about, so it's kind of great because it's in one very small community, but we're able to spread to that many more kids and that many more soon to be adults, that know about it.
That's awesome.
It really started from the book. I mean, it just came from that, and it's just been able to go from there.
Right, right, exactly. I mean, even having them research and use you as a resource, like that's something that could have happened before the book, but because of the book, it kind of made it probably a lot more visible, which is we're talking about invisible illnesses, but
Yeah. And I think it's because, you think about it, these kiddos, if I'm reading to them in fifth grade, right? And now it's seventh grade that they're doing this, a lot of the kids are like, I remember when you came in reading that, and you remember because I told you that so and so has, this or something like that. And so it's just kind of reestablishing it through. And what's really nice is that there's a student, and I think he's a senior or a junior this year, and I'm not 100% sure. He goes out of his way whenever he sees me to ask me how's my fibro day doing. And he actually says it that way. And because he remembers way back when I was first reading it and explaining to him, how it was one of those days that it was a bad day. It was when I was still struggling. So I had the sunglasses. It just, the touch was going to be something too much. And he remembers me reading, the book to him back then. And he's still at this age and everything. He's just, and so when I went through the remission time that I went through, I was like, I feel great, and I was so excited to share with him because he's always wanting to check on me. And it started basically with me just going in and just kind of sharing a little bit about what and how you can help somebody with fibromyalgia, you know, from
Mhm.
reading a children's book. And I always tell the older kids at middle school, I said, this is geared to a lot younger kids and stuff, but you can always get a lot out of it, even though it's for much younger. And I always tell them flat out from the get go, yep, this is supposed to be for the elementary school kiddos, but let's see what you guys think of it and see. And I find that even the lower grade middle school kids get really interested in it and want to ask a lot of questions from it too.
Yeah. So what age is the book written towards?
Oh, it's really probably gauged more towards like preschool and elementary age school. I've had a few people use it on their husbands, however, and have them be able to read it too.
I was actually just going to say that I've had several clients where I've said, they're having trouble with like adult family members understanding, buy the book for their kids,
Yep, have them
have them
read it
read
to
it to
them.
them. Yeah.
But like I said, it is nice just because even though it is geared for the younger kids, I do get a lot of questions and stuff from like the fifth or the sixth graders and stuff from that, just from reading it. And they'll follow up with me later on. Or if it's a day that's a gray, yucky day outside, they'll ask me, how am I doing or something because they remember. That's just reading it one time to them. So it's nice because just by one time them hearing a book, they've been educated on something that affects millions of people, that they'll be able to understand.
Yeah. It's so funny. I've talked to so many people about their fibromyalgia and having little ones in their lives and how bad they feel about not being able to like be like everybody else's mom. But I think that there's such a wonderful opportunity here to raise more compassionate little humans,
Oh, I
right?
think
I
so.
mean,
Yeah.
kids of somebody with fibromyalgia, if we do it right, can grow up to be a lot more compassionate, a lot more understanding of other conditions, not just fibromyalgia.
I think so too. It's like Ravens mentioned that too. Me, and also she's talked about that there's not very many great things about having a mom have fibromyalgia, right? But it has taught her a lot of different things, and some of the things that it has taught her is to definitely be more empathetic towards other people, more caring and understanding. And she said that she feels that because she's the way she is a big part of the fact that because I had what I had and having to go through that and stuff, she thinks that she can contribute how she is towards, and the job she probably will end up with when she finally decides, her end job will probably be in the field of taking care of others. And
Right.
she thinks that that stems from the fact that, unfortunately, as a young child, she did have to help and take care of me more than I would have liked. But you are right. I mean, it's going to at least give us, hopefully, more people out there that, I have a child that was not the very nicest stepson in the world to a woman. And I read the book to him and stuff, and he had come in and everything. And he's like, I didn't know that she was feeling like that all the time. My dad and I just thought she was lazy. And then I had read this book, you know, and
Yeah.
he changed so much, and he's one of the most sweetest grown-up children now and stuff. He was a young middle schooler at the time, and he's so mature and everything, and, I just didn't understand, and I mean, I read the book and I talked to him just a little bit, afterwards about it and everything. He goes, "I didn't know that, that was real. I didn't know it was a real thing." And, the stepmom and stuff told me, she goes, there was such a change, and stuff. They just didn't have that connection of that believing that it's something that was existing, that it was a real thing, and just a children's book kind of that was geared much younger than his age was something that at least validated the stepmom and said, this is real and this is what she goes
Mhm.
through every day. And it was just fantastic and stuff because it just was a turning point for him to understand what she's going through and stuff. And it made a difference. And that makes it worth it.
It does, it does. And sometimes I think we need to have that sort of third party validation, right?
Hmm.
Like, I can tell you how I feel,
Right.
but it means something different coming from somebody else that you may not even know to say,
Completely.
"I'm feeling that too."
Yeah, absolutely. Someone not your family member, someone not attached to you and stuff. I mean, you need to have somebody that's, stepped away from the situation and stuff that really doesn't know we're not involved in everything. And I do think that this child, as far as I was concerned, he would always come and, check up on me whenever he was in the hallways and different things like that. And I know that he became more understanding at home afterwards because then he's like, oh, it's just like I didn't really get it.
Mhm.
And in simple terms, because it is very simple. I mean, it's not a very complicated book. It's very, very simple because it's geared for younger kiddos. But
Yep.
sometimes it helps the ones that are a little bit older too.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, before we go on, I just want for you listening to get the resources that we've been talking about with Melissa's paper dolls and things like that. Today's show notes, just go to fibromyalgiapodcast.com/98. This is episode 98. So fibromyalgiapodcast.com/98 will have links to all her stuff, links to where you can buy the book and use it with your own kids. So where I was going to ask you is for somebody who's listening to this and thinking, yeah, this is great. I have people who need to understand better. How would you recommend that they go about that? And maybe even sort of like group it into ages. So, obviously, very young kids, you'd be reading the book to them. But what are some other ways that people might be able to use this?
Well, I actually created a coloring book that has the exact same story. Nothing's changed. It just took the color out of it so that younger kids can just get kind of the concept, right? That they're just coloring it while you're reading it to them because they'll be able to catch on to it a little bit more and a little bit involvement and interactive. For the younger kids, like you said, it's definitely just kind of reading them about it and everything. And inside the book, she's telling them how to pronounce fibromyalgia. And so even just having them to be able to pronounce it or get it kind of right is kind of a nice way to do it. And at the older kids, I definitely think there's so much more conversation that you can dig into with those kiddos. The more group conversations you can have, really, if it's your own child, you can have some really good one on ones. I mean, does this work for you? How much? Oh,
I just want to show the artwork here really quick.
isn't she the most wonderful artist? Oh, I will slaughter her last name when I say it right, but her first name is Anna. I screw up her last name all the time saying it right. But oh my gosh, she's just the most wonderful artist ever.
Yeah. Really, really fun artwork to be able to, yeah.
Oh, I know. And when I wanted her to do the drawings, I knew in my head what I wanted. And the publisher sent me all these different artists' work. And when I saw her stuff, I was like, that is exactly what I wanted. And I wanted different ethnicity groups recognized because I work with English language learners. And so I wanted to make sure that the children that were in the kindergarten class represented a broader group of diversity. Oh, so I love it. Thank you for showing the artwork. I think she's amazing.
So if you're listening to this as just as a podcast, if you go to the show notes page for today, we have the behind the scenes video and you can kind of see it. So again, just fibromyalgiapodcast.com/98. We'll have that video. And of course, you'll see the artwork when you take a look at where you can buy the book. But yeah, it's awesome. And so it's fun for coloring too, right?
Oh,
Like
it is.
just the
Yeah.
style of the art and I don't know, just nice big spaces to color, you know?
Mhm. Yeah, I think so. And it's easier because then you can use it for a much younger age, where they can just kind of ease into it and you can talk about just a little bit while they're coloring. And it doesn't have to be where you sit down and read a story or have a big discussion. You can say, oh, yeah, that's just like grandma, or, that's just like, yeah, whatever, and just go on to keep coloring. You don't have to make a big deal about the whole situation. And, little
Mhm.
bit by little bit, they'll understand.
And then for older kids, what would you do?
For older kids, we've really been opening it up to more of a discussion and stuff about do they understand the difference between invisible and visible and like different kinds of symptoms and stuff. And I found what their questions are more interesting about, like, if there's a cure for it and what kind of treatments can you have and what does it do and how does it feel today? So I've really tried to compare things when I'm feeling different things, like, so that they understand them. So for me, like, I have the tactile allodynia really bad, usually in my arms and my thighs. And so I'll explain to them that, on the days that it's really bad, I say, oh, it's like a bad sunburn, and try to get them to understand something that they can relate to. I'm like, when your buddy comes up to you because they think it's really funny that you got a sunburn and they smack you on the back and they're like, oh, like that. That's what it feels like when the wind just blows and it just touches my hands and my arms and stuff like that. So I'm trying to have those discussions with them to kind of relate some of the feelings that I have, to something that they might have experienced themselves. It's like, oh, that really hurts when they do that. Like, yep. And that's what happens when the wind happened to be blowing, or there was a fan in the room that, was pointed my direction on the wrong day, and
Right.
it was just feeling that way. And so I find that for them, just once you start the conversation, they will ask you so much more and they will get deeper and quicker and stuff like that because they really do want to understand it for the most, they want to get to the heart of it and stuff. And the littler ones are always going to be like in the middle. They're always going to be like, my grandpa has this, my grandma has this, that kind of a stuff. So that's where reading the book and it's good to know you can focus. Yep, that's a visible one. Can you see it? Yes. Because that way, if they do happen to have something, you can really open it up to that's an invisible illness and that's a visible illness kind of thing.
Mhm.
But when you're talking about the older ones and they want to really get into the nitty gritty about how things actually feel or what you can do or what you can take and stuff, their questions get much more deep and involved. And I feel like you can really get emotional even more so with them because they really will connect with you about how something feels, or how they felt. I just think that's kind of, it doesn't take much for the older ones once you get them started. They'll ask more of the questions than anything.
And you have sort of a list of discussion questions or something, right? On
I do,
your
yeah.
site?
On the website and stuff, I do have a list just to start you off with and stuff so that you can start discussing the difference between invisible and visible, so we can kind of get started. And I do have on the website, I do have like the different symptoms and syndromes and what I call them the evil sidekicks and stuff like that, right? So I do have those all on there. So then the older kids, you can say, okay, so, I was saying that, this is what I've got, right? Well, look at all these things that are possibilities that sometimes you could possibly have these along with fibro and stuff. And then just to try to get them more connected to understand that kind of stuff with the older kids.
Mhm. And at what stage would you use the actual paper doll? Like what is happening in the book where people are decorating their own?
You definitely can do kindergarten for sure. I mean, 4-year-olds can color it, but they're not going to understand like exactly the reasoning that they're coloring it. So you could have them color it so it goes with the book so that they can make their mommy or their daddy or, whoever it is they want to. But when you're in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, they're completely going to be understanding the connection as to, why they're doing the paper doll and who that's for.
Mhm. I could see this being so awesome. I mean, obviously in like, schools and things, but I could also see using this at like Sunday school or like any of those places where you've got groups of kids or even just at home.
Yeah, I think it could be used to a lot of different things. And I do like the simplicity of just the paper doll, so that you can do, even if you're just coloring the person and it looks like their mom, right? And there's nothing wrong with them when you look at the paper doll. Yep, that's exactly the way a lot of us look when we're walking down the street or wherever we happen to be, right? Because that's why it's invisible and we look like, oh, they look normal, don't look like there's anything wrong. And so that's kind of like just for them to be able to understand that even though this is how they look on the outside, that's necessarily how they're feeling on the inside. And, to be able to make sure that they can connect with those kind of things.
And I imagine you can tie that into a whole bunch of other things, right? Like Aunt so and so who's diabetic, perhaps,
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
Or
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, and we do have a couple students that are, like you said, diabetic and stuff, and so that they can talk about that or even cancer, I mean, one of the paper patients in the book, the grandmother has cancer. And so she happens to be wearing, something on her head because she has no hair anymore. But without that, if she had a wig on or if she had not lost her hair from the chemo, you would not know. It's another thing
Mhm.
that by looking at this person, you wouldn't know that she was sick. And so it does open up to be able to talk about so many other diseases and conditions,
Mhm.
that are out there.
And ways that we can help the people that we love too, because that's a part of the story too.
I think that's the most important part, because Raven is sitting there and she's helping her mom off the floor and she's helping her write the list so she doesn't forget things. And, she's doing all these different things so that she can do the most with her mom and so that she can do things with. And I do think that it's great that they learn about the invisible part of it and that it exists and this is what it is and everything. But goes back to the beginning when you were talking about, how many kids or how many people are we going to have that are going to be that much more caring to others. And I think that if it can help some more kids, turn and be like that all the time, then that's the best part of it right there. No matter what the health situation or even no health problems, right? We hope they're all going to be like that with everybody, but
Yeah,
it would be really nice, if they're kind of really in tune to it when it comes to, family situations like this.
right. Yeah. So I know this, for you listening, it may seem like how can we change the world with one small book? And it's simple on the face of it. But Melissa and I both have heard so many stories from mutual friends and clients of ours, friends of ours, that it really has, this book has really made a huge difference. I know you shared a couple of stories, but do you have a couple more?
Like you said, it really is nice to be able to hear about that and stuff. We have a lot of the kids that I know through work. It kind of is nice. And I will see pictures of them where the older kids have to go down and read books to the younger ones and stuff. So they do that a couple times a year. They go to read to the 4-year-olds. And 2 years ago, it was the coolest thing because I was walking down and then I saw, and there was one of my students. She had chosen my book to take down to read to the 4-year-old. And I was so excited, and that was just fantastic. But that's kind of the lead in for what you want to say actually about the book because my student, my newest little one, did not speak much English. And so, even though the older student could speak Spanish and English, she was still reading it to her in English, just reading her the book and going along because, my older student had since gained enough English knowledge and everything that that's what she was going to read everything and was going to be in English and stuff. So it was kind of a little bit of a challenge. It was exciting to be able to see the one of my students was sharing it with my newest little student and stuff that was 4 years old. But it was also kind of a little disappointing because it was in English and not in Spanish.
Right. And those of you who are watching the video, if you notice when I hold this up, that is not English.
It's not. That's
So tell us about the Spanish edition of
Mm.
Ravensdoll.
You know what? I think this is almost more exciting than the first go around. Isn't that crazy? I think it is. I think because I work with the English language learners, I think this was almost more excited than the first time around, just because it was so important to me that I start out with another language and then it be Spanish because primarily the kiddos that I work with are Spanish speaking. It's so I was just so excited, but Spanish is not an easy one to have translated because everybody has their own dialect. It's all different, right? And so
Right. Here in the US, we think Spanish is Spanish, but there's Mexican Spanish and there's South American Spanish and there's Spain Spanish.
exactly. And and everywhere it's different, right? Even in Mexico, you have the
Right.
different depending on where you live, it's different and stuff. And you've got Puerto Rico is not the same as Mexico, is not the same as Colombia and Guatemala. And so it was just one of these challenging things. So what I ended up doing was I had it translated first. And then I took advantage of not only my students that I work with, they're from different countries, but I also took advantage of our foreign exchange students that we happen to have at the high school.
Mhm.
And I had all of them in the different avenues of Spanish speaking taken, translated all over. And we ended up doing it so then I would have them read the version that I had from the other one. And we would see which ones were the most similar and how it would blend together. And so I did the best I could with getting it so that it still makes sense to everybody who's reading it in Spanish. It's not going to be precise for each dialect out there, but it will be pretty darn close and they'll be able to understand it. And the finished product, the kiddos and the parents and everybody who helped me all said that they were able to completely understand it and they were very happy with the end result. So I'm very happy with the end result. And it was neat because when I went up to talk to one of the foreign exchange students, and I asked her if she would mind proofreading it for me and making sure that the wording was right. She looked at the book and she looked over at one of the other students that was from another one of the countries and she said, "That is why my mama can't work. She has that." And I was like, "Oh my, your mama has fibromyalgia?" And she goes, "See, that's why she cannot work." And I had no idea that her mother had fibromyalgia. I didn't know anything. I just strictly went over to her because I know that she was from a Spanish speaking country. And I was asking for her help if she would mind just looking at it for me and stuff like
Oh,
that.
that's cool.
It was cool. So then I made her mama a care package of everything with all the information of connections and stuff if she might need it and people to reach out to and stuff because it was like, wow, that was pretty cool, that I was able to hopefully reach out to somebody else in another country that needs help, and to be able to help them, especially if they're not able to work because so yes, I'm really excited about it. That's pretty cool. So it took a little bit of work because I had to have my artist had to go back in because it's a children's book. There's a lot of words that are written on things and stuff like on inside the pictures and stuff. So I had to go
Right,
back and
right.
have my artist go back and translate, and change all of the words that are on the pictures of everything and stuff. So then once I got that all done and I matched up what they thought was a great blending of the Spanish and everything, I was able to get it done, and I'm so excited.
Yay!
I know, I know.
So, one of the reasons you and I are doing this interview right now is because honestly, everyone, these would be fantastic Christmas presents for the children in your life, or even as donations to places that serve children having this. So please, Melissa, tell us how we can find copies of your book and purchase copies.
They are available on Amazon, so you can find them there. The coloring book, the version in English and the version in Spanish, they're all available there. So, yep, just can search Raven Style, how to explain fibromyalgia to your child, and you should be able to find it right there on Amazon.
Perfect. We will actually have a direct link on today's show notes, so you can go right to it. Go to fibromyalgiapodcast.com/98. We'll have the link to those books. Can you also spell Ravyn? Because you spell Ravyn differently. And if
I do
somebody
that.
is searching for Raven's doll, they won't find it.
That's true. It's Ravyn. So I just got to change the E for a Y.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, thank you so much for sharing this and honestly for writing the book, creating the book, because it has been just such a wonderful tool for so many people that I know in helping the others in their lives understand. So good job.
Thank you.
Any last things you want to share? Thoughts, any tips, anything you want to share before we wrap up?
Well, I do have in May when I do my awareness and stuff, I do like to share pictures and stuff of people who are reading the book or kids that have made paper dolls and stuff. And if there's anybody who would like to, send me their pictures, I would love to post them so they can just find my information. I'm sure you'll put it out there for them. They can email me the pictures. We don't put names or where you're from or anything on the pictures, but it's nice to be able to see, the different ways it's being used and the different paper dolls that are being made too as part of awareness.
Absolutely. I've seen a bunch of those and it's so fun. If you are at all concerned about your child's privacy, you can take pictures where it doesn't show their face and just like shows them reading, or take
Absolutely.
pictures of the paper doll itself. Those kinds of things would be great. We'd love that. All right. Well, thanks again. And everyone, stay tuned. We'll have just a couple of quick things to wrap up here at the end, our listener shout out for the week, and a couple other little announcements. And then we'll be back here in 2 weeks with another interview with one of my coaches. Anne, we'll be back here next time. Thanks so much. And that wraps up my interview with author Melissa Swanson talking about her book, Ravyn's Doll: How to Explain Fibromyalgia to Your Child. Now, I hope you take advantage of all the resources Melissa has made available. We will have a link to where you can get those on today's show notes page. Just go to fibromyalgiapodcast.com/98, and we will have links where you can find the coloring pages, the extra questions that you can use as discussion questions with older children, lesson plans, and the paper doll that you can use with younger children. We will have all of those links on today's show notes. We also will have links where you can purchase Ravyn's Doll. Those are available on Amazon. Both the English version, the Spanish edition, and the coloring book are all available out there. We'll have those links in today's show notes. Again, it's fibromyalgiapodcast.com/98. Please consider giving these as gifts. The more books we give out, the more people will understand. We hope that you will share those with the people in your life who have little ones, whether that's grandchildren, children, nieces, nephews, friends. If you are a teacher, if you're in Sunday school, share them with your pediatrician's office. Any place we can get these out and into the hands of more people to understand, the better. And along those lines, I am super excited to share with you that the fibromyalgia documentary that we've been working on for 7 years now is finally premiering at the end of this week as I'm recording this episode. It will be premiering on Friday, December 9th. Invisible is the name of the documentary. And like I said, we've been working on it for 7 years now. And in this film, the main character, Nick, who also happens to be the director of the film, he is going on a journey to help him understand his mom better. His mother has fibromyalgia, and in his journey, Nick interviews several doctors, several other advocates and experts on fibromyalgia. I'm one of the people that he interviews. He also interviews several different patients And one of the things I really love about this film is that it shows the full gamut of fibromyalgia. This isn't about a specific treatment or even one specific patient's journey. It's really about fibromyalgia as a whole. And so you will see people in the film who are extremely disabled and unable to work. You'll see people in the film who are in remission. You will see doctors actually contradict each other, which those of us who are patients, we can relate to that. You'll also hear an insurance company saying, nope, none of that is covered under your insurance, which again is something that we can really relate to. I know you are going to really love this film, and this is going to be another tool that you can use to really help people understand both your experience with fibromyalgia, but also just understand fibromyalgia as a whole and the challenges that we face coming from people who are experts and patients themselves. Now, as I said, this premieres on Friday, December 9th. So if you are listening to this episode before that date, use the link in today's show notes to pre-order the rental, and you can actually watch it on the 9th, the day it comes out. If you are listening to this after the 9th, use the same link. You'll be able to go out there and rent the film. Yes, it will eventually be on Netflix, Amazon Prime, all of the places, but it takes a little while to work that out. And we know that the community has been very anxious to see this film because we've been talking about it for 7 years now. So if you are one of those who does not want to wait, it will be available December 9th, and you can pre-order it now. We are excited for you to see it, and I hope that you will enjoy that. And now I've got this week's listener shout out for you. This comes from a listener in upstate New York who says, I am newly diagnosed, but have been suffering for a while now. I feel like I'm just starting my journey. I'm enjoying your podcast very much and getting a lot out of it. Thank you so much for sending in your email. We love hearing from our listeners. And I know so many people can relate to what you just said. You know, when we get our diagnosis, sometimes it feels like the end of a long journey because it usually takes a while for us to get a diagnosis. A lot of times, even newly diagnosed, we have been suffering for a while. And it also feels like the beginning of a whole new journey as you're trying to figure out, now that I know what the heck is wrong with me, now I have to figure out how to live with it. So I'm glad you're finding the podcast useful. And I would recommend a few specific episodes to you. The first episode is literally, I was just diagnosed with fibromyalgia. What do I do now? And that is episode 69. I would also recommend episode 43, which is What Does It Take to Get Better? A couple other good episodes would be from the very beginning of the podcast, episodes 4 and 5, where I talk about some of the history of fibromyalgia, some of the research with fibromyalgia, and then interview Dr. Ginevra Lipton about fibromyalgia, what she thinks it is, and how she views it both as a patient herself and as a doctor who treats fibromyalgia. Now, of course, every episode is going to be helpful, but you can't start everywhere all at once. So I would give you those 4 specific episodes to take a look at. I would also highly recommend, if you need a dose of encouragement, to check out our Stories of Hope and Healing episodes. There's a bunch of them out there. Just go to today's show notes and you'll see links to a lot of those episodes that I just mentioned. It's fibromyalgiapodcast.com/98. That wraps us up for today, and I will see you back here next time as I interview Ann Coulter. She is another one of my graduates. She is a single mom with fibromyalgia who also has a daughter with chronic illness. So join us as she shares her story and a little bit about her journey on our next episode. See you then. And that wraps up another episode of the Fibromyalgia Podcast. I'm your coach, Tami Stacklehouse. For daily doses of hope, inspiration, and practical advice, come hang out with me on Facebook. Visit facebook.com/fibrocoach to find my personal coaching page and connect with me directly. To find the show notes, additional resources, or to schedule a consultation with me or one of my coaches, visit fibromyalgiapodcast.com.